At Pierre's Auto Dealership.
Welcome to our podcast, the best sports podcast on the net today. Listen to the breakdown everything Mets. From off-season news, Mets trade rumors, and game reactions during the season. You can now listen to our show Monday, Friday at 8 p.m., while also listen on weekends at 8 a.m. To learn more, check out our website at www.MetsXMFanZone.com. While don't forget to share, like and subscribe and get back into the Mets groove all season long. Welcome to our podcast, the best sports podcast on the net today. Listen to the breakdown everything Mets. From off-season news, Mets trade rumors, and game reactions during the season. You can now listen to our show Monday, Friday at 8 p.m., while also listen on weekends at 8 a.m. To learn more, check out our website at www.MetsXMFanZone.com. While don't forget to share, like and subscribe and get back into the Mets groove all season long. Welcome to our podcast, the best sports podcast on the net today. Listen to the breakdown everything Mets. From off-season news, Mets trade rumors, and game reactions during the season. You can now listen to our show Monday, Friday at 8 p.m., while also listen on weekends at 8 a.m. To learn more, check out our website at www.MetsXMFanZone.com. While don't forget to share, like and subscribe and get back into the Mets groove all season long. Welcome to our podcast, the best sports podcast on the net today. Listen to the breakdown everything Mets. From off-season news, Mets trade rumors, and game reactions during the season. You can now listen to our show Monday, Friday at 8 p.m., while also listen on weekends at 8 m. To learn more, check out our website at www.MetsXMFanZone.com. While don't forget to share, like and subscribe and get back into the Mets groove all season long.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to MetsXMFanZone Live Podcast. We will be live in 10 minutes, so please stay put, and we will see you guys in 10 minutes. So we will be going live in 10 minutes right here on the MetsXMFanZone Live Podcast.
Welcome to our podcast, the best sports podcast on the net today. Listen to the breakdown everything Mets. From off-season news, Mets trade rumors, and game reactions during the season. You can now listen to our show Monday, Friday at 8 p.m., while also listen on weekends at 8 a.m. To learn more, check out our website at www.MetsXMFanZone.com. While don't forget to share, like and subscribe and get back into the Mets groove all season long.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of MetsXMFanZone Live Podcast, the best sports podcast on the net today. If you guys love our videos, please always tweet, like, and subscribe. And to get all of your latest Mets Live news podcasts, don't forget to check out by going to MetsXMFanZone.com. We break down everything Mets, every podcast, and you guys can download all of our shows on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can listen to our platforms on all those platforms. Also, don't forget, we go live on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also on YouTube. You'll find us on all of our platforms by going to MetsXMFanZone Live Podcast. So we got a really good show for you guys today. So we're gonna start off by Martin Luther King. So, today is Martin Luther King Day, and I thought I would start the show with that first. The reason being is because this is a special day for not only for America, but for all of our people in the United States. And this happens to be an event that we all should cherish and love. Dr. Martin Luther King fought for civil rights. He fought for blacks and whites to come together. And you know what? It really symbols on what the American dream is really all about. And we should be, I don't want to go on the show and, bash anybody. But, we should be a one nation, one under God. And by what this nation has become in the last couple of years has been despicable. And, and Martin Luther King would probably be rolling in his grave to really see, what's been happening. I mean, he was a good man. I would say not only was he a good man, he was a good leader. He was a smart guy. And he really tried to, put this nation in just one, so that way we could all love each other. So, I would love to rekindle quotes that Martin Luther King said 55 years ago, which was, forgiveness is not an essential act, it is a permanent attitude. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And I find those words are powerful, absolutely. And he made something just completely to a different level. Something that I felt in my lifetime. I'm appreciative from the things that we have in this nation, in this country. He was able to make these quotes so powerful. I'm going to read some more quotes from you from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He said, I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Another quote by Dr. King. Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. Life's most precious and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And obviously, the biggest speech of all, I had a dream. That I had a dream that all men are created equal. If it's white or black, we come together as one. True peace is not merely the absence of tension. It is the presence of justice. And you would think that President, well, I'm not going to come on here and pick a side here, but I mean, you would think that President Biden would be able to address this earlier today, and I feel that President Biden is really just spreading the nation apart. I mean, you're supposed to be a divider. You're supposed to be a uniter, not a divider. So I mean, I think we're all starting to see what this nation is really all about and what it's really came down to. And I think that, people value God. People value not only God, but people value togetherness. You would think that when you are together, we could just put our differences aside and just for one day love each other. So, I mean, again, this is a Martin Luther King Day. This is not a political statement. This is not, we're not here to play politics. I'm not here to play politics, but, I want to say that Martin Luther King was such a historical figure. Why can't our kids not understand the logic of history, and especially the American history? Why we need to be so arrogant in our ways? Why can't we just love each other and just goddamn get along? Why don't we stop rioting in the street? Why don't we come together and talk about our differences? Talk about what we're looking to do. What are we trying to change? Even with our politicians, why do we need to have a Republican and a Democrat? Why do we feel the need to constantly fight? And then we fight amongst our parties. So, I mean, it is something that this country has always been about, divisiveness. You're a Republican or a Democrat. So we need to stop the hate, stop the fight. We need to get along. But however, going back into Martin Luther King, there's so many quotes here that I would love to quote from him. A genius leader is not a searcher for conquest, but a molder of sense. The moral arc of the universe bends the elbow of justice. I want to be the white man's brother, not his brother-in-law. You can kill the dreamers, but you can't kill the dream. I think that's a quote that really transcends everybody in this country, I feel. All we say to America is be true to what you say on paper. If I live in China or even in Russia or a totalitarian country, maybe I could understand denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they hadn't commit themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of the press. somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for rights. That's a very powerful quote by Dr. King. And he also said, too, which this is another quote I really love: power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental, and power at its best is loved, implementing the demons of justice, and justice at its best is power, correcting everything that stands against love. I'll say one more thing to end the segment. And it goes, shallow understanding from people of good will is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Maybe I'll quote one more of his, which I also love too. This is another quote that I love. Well, when people get caught up with that which is right and are willing to sacrifice for it, there is no stopping point short of victory. And of course, if you're an entrepreneur of black descendant or white descendant, it should be equal opportunity and fair game. Quote unquote by Dr. Jr. So I celebrate him, I honor him, and I am glad to say that Martin Luther King really did make a difference in the world, even though on what today is really all about. And I feel that, in my honest opinion, that we need a guy like him in this, another guy like somebody that's a uniter. Which again, I'm not putting a name out there. I mean, I don't want to really be I don't want to be canceled, but I mean, I think there was a man out there that was very close to Martin Luther, and was for the American ways, and was for the American dream. Go out there and quote who I feel this individual was, but we on a Martin Luther King Day should be dead, and it's disturbing. Where is our moral and our dignity and our respect for God? So let's go on with some Mets news today. So we got lots of ground to cover. If you guys love our shows, please always tweet, like, and subscribe. And of course, if you hit the bell icon on YouTube, remember to hit that button so that way you don't miss a moment of our live broadcast, and so that way you guys can get our content. If you also hit that start button, you're showing support to our channel. And by doing that, it would mean a lot, so that way we could give you guys content on a daily basis, talk New York Mets, and that way you could talk with us. So next week, so here's the deal. Next week, we will be opening up the phones. I know I haven't really been doing so. My producer is telling me that we will be opening up the phone lines on Tuesday of next week on our next week's Icecast. So please check it out by going to MetsXMFanZone.com for any details. If you want to check everything out for yourself when we do scheduling and stuff like that. Also, we're going to be down at Port St. Lucie February 18th. We'll be having a booth. I'll be doing a live broadcast down there by podcast. I think you guys are going to come out, enjoy it, can meet and greet with me, and sit down, and we could talk Met news. So this is going to be a really different podcast when we go down. What we're going to do is we're going to have fans come on to the show, like sit next to me, and we're going to do 1 to 2 minutes of each fan. and they're gonna ask their questions, and we're gonna put it on the show. And I thought that would be really cool because you know what, you don't really get that one-on-one interaction. You know, you always hear people on the phone and stuff like that, but want to be able to get face value, so that way, people are coming on there asking their questions, and and just talking Mets sports. So I think that would be really cool when we go down there. Also, we're going to be getting some interviews. I got one scheduled. Me talking with Buck Showalter, so we do got an interview going on in there, and we have another interview. Me talking with Francisco Lindor. So on a 1-to-1. I think those two interviews are going to be really cool. I'm really looking forward to doing those, and I think you guys are going to be really appreciative to hearing what both of those men have to say. And I think this is going to be a good team this year. Not only that, but they got lots of talent. We added a lot of different arms this year. We added a lot of defensive bats this year, and I think that the Mets are going to be all right. So I mean, it's going to be a good year. You guys are going to really enjoy this year. And there's going to be ups and downs, like there always is every year. We're used to it as always. But I think that moving forward with this team, this team got a lot of years to come for championship. So I don't think that the Mets are far behind. With Justin Verlander coming in, I think he's gonna come out with a really good impact. I think that Max Scherzer is probably gonna go down a little bit in his career. I don't feel that he's, we started to see a little bit of him fall apart just a little bit, because we know on how Max Scherzer always lights it up during the playoffs. Didn't get it done. So I mean, he kind of started falling there towards the end of the season. His started getting a little hurt in 2020. I mean, in 21, 22. And I think what you're going to see this year, maybe, if anything, him bounce back. So if he could bounce back, he's also up there in age too. So, I mean, listen, when you turn a certain age, especially when you're a pitcher, it kind of tears you down. It really does. Absolutely. Because you're throwing over 90 a pitch, throwing 100 pitches. So I mean, it puts a lot of fatigue to your shoulder. So the Grom. But I mean, I think he's going to be really good. So I'm not giving up on him just yet, but I really like that. Gonna have it. And then, of course, we brought in a new addition in that starting rotation in Cody Sangan, and then we got Utana. A lot of people always forget about him, that the Mets got him, because the focus was on the Japanese pitcher, the focus was on Justin Verlander, and then the focus was on Carlos Carrera, because, the Mets were so hot and heavy on him. But, the Scott Boras thing, and that's kind of didn't fall through. It was supposed to be 12 years, $315 million, and then, the Giants tried to sign him, the Mets tried to sign him, and then all came down push and shove that he ended up re-signing with the Twins 6 years at $200 million. So I think with that, there was I've heard so many things on that one where the Mets did want him, but the Mets wanted to bring down the money wise. The Mets were willing to come down to 250. I think it was like 250 million. But the Mets were really skeptical on physical. So, there was a whole debacle on that. So I think I'll go into I'll go into another podcast talking about just Carlos Carrera, but we have to move on. So now, the New York Mets and Pete Alonso avoid arbitration. So the Mets' first-time baseman Pete Alonso had avoided arbitration by agreeing to a $14 a $14.5 million deal for the 2023. He slashed a 271 last year with 40 home runs in a campaign and lead the National League in RBIs and also lead the National League with over 142. He also tied it with Aaron Judd at 142 also as well. So Alonso has been, well, obviously everybody knows how long Alonso's been with the organization. A long time. He was down in with the minors with the New York Mets. He always hits for power. So I think this arbitration move, 14, with the 14.5 million. I think that was a good move because you know what? Alonso's going to give you 30, 40 home runs a year. And a guy is a powerful, he just reminds me so much of Mike Piazza. He really does. And I think he's going to be a really good addition for years to come. So I think that Alonso is just he's an amazing player. Just so you guys know, we are live on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. And if you guys would like to hear our shows right after our live podcast, we will be available on all the platforms and above your screen at Spotify, Instagram, YouTube, and Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So please do forget to check it out today. All right, so let's move right along. So the Mets are. So we were talking about on our last podcast that the Mets are interested in Tommy Pham. I think this move could be a realistic move, and plus, let's see, Andrew McCutchen just signed with the Pirates. Trey Mancini might be re-signing with the Cubs. Right now, there are two guys kind of still up in the air, which would be Adam Duvall and Tommy Pham. So those are the two guys that the Mets could end up picking up. I haven't heard really much on Adam Duvall. I think Adam Duvall will make a really good addition on this club because he does hit for power. I think he would be really good in that DH role. But if I was really going to pick between the two, if the Mets wanted to go and get a secured bat, I would say Adam Duvall would probably be a little bit more of a realistic bat. Tommy Pham, I like. I just think that with Tommy Pham, his numbers have really dropped down a lot. I know by me looking at his numbers, we could go with Tommy Pham here. I'll start that off. You see, last year when he played with the Reds, he went 214 at bats. He had 24 RBIs. He struck out 67 times. He had 6 home runs, and even before that, he went with the Reds and the Red Sox. So when he was with he was with the Reds and he got 11 home runs. When he was with the Red Sox, he had 6 home runs. So prior to the year before, his best year was actually with the Reds. 2019 had 21 home runs. His batting average was 215. So I mean, he hasn't really had a good career. I mean, one year he had 49 RBIs in 2021, which it's okay, but in 2019, he had 68 RBIs, which was okay. But if you go all the way down to 2017, which he played for the Cardinals, he had 73 RBIs, he had 23 home runs. So that was technically his best year, was in 2017. But if you go from 17 to all the way to 22, I mean, 2019 he had 21. He had 21 home runs. Then 2020 and 2021 he had 15. 2022 he had 11. 2022, well, with the Red Sox and then the Reds, so combining of 16 home runs between the two teams that he was. So I mean, if you really want to look at those numbers, does that really strike me? But if you let's look at Adam Duvall's stats. If we look at his, pulling up his stats now, I think Adam Duvall would be way better. So I'm starting down with 2000, which was in 2016 was one of his best years. He had 103 RBIs. He had 552 at bats. He had 86 runs with a total of 33 home runs. And that was back in 2016. So now if we look at 2017, he had at 99 RBIs. He had 31 home runs. He had a batting average of 331. And then we go up to 2018. 2018, he went to the Reds and then the Braves. So after the Reds, he had 15 home runs, 61 RBIs. He had, his at bats dipped down a little bit. So he had 331 at bats. So, and that was when he was with the Reds in 2008. In 2019, he had 10. He had 10 home runs. In 2020, he had 16 home runs. In 2021, which he was actually with the Marlins in 2021, he had 22 home runs. So he kind of rejuvenated a little bit, but only had 68 RBIs, and then he's kind of started dipping a little bit in 21 with back with the Braves. 21 and then 22. In 21, he had only 30. He had 45 RBIs with the Braves, but again he dipped down in at bats. Had 199 bats. The average went down to 226. He had 16 home runs. And then in 2022, only had 287 at bats. Went down to 36 RBIs. Only had 12 home runs and batted 213. So I mean, if you kind of go through all the years that Adam Duvall had, I mean, he has been like around the 213, 226s. He had 1 year. He had two bad years, which was in 2018 when he was with the Braves, but he really had hardly any playing time. He was hurt that year in 2008, in the beginning of 2018, and then in 2014 he played with the Giants, which I guess that's when he first started out, was with the Giants. He batted 190. So the start of his career, probably I would say that's his start of his career was with the Giants. And then in 2018. So those were the two worst years he actually had, but every year he was around the average of 213, 226. His highest at bat was 267, which was back in 2009. But his best year was in 2016, where he had 552 at bats at 33. So I mean, looking at his stats and seeing, what I see here. He's my age. He was born in 1988, which was he was 34 years old. So I mean, he would make a pretty decent addition. So I wouldn't say he wouldn't be a bad addition. I think it would make a really good platoon there with Marquena. He is an outfielder, and he currently plays for the Atlanta Braves. So I mean, so overall, at what I see here, could he make a really good addition to coming over to the New York Mets? I think it would make a really nice addition. But there's nothing yet on him, so I do know as of now I haven't really heard any word in the Mets organization. The Mets are planning on bringing in Duvall, but they are having some considerations. It could make a really good a defensive move. And plus, he does have a decent bat, so I would definitely like to see. And and then let me see if I could just pull up Tommy Pham's stats here. Let's see what we got. So I got Tommy Pham's stats. I don't know if I. So I mean, if you look at Pham's from 2014 to 2022, his best year was in 2019 when he played for the Rays. 21 home runs, and he had 68 RBIs, at bats 567. So that was a pretty decent year. But if you look back at 2017, he played for the St. Louis Cardinals. He had also a good at bat too with 444 at bats. He had 73 RBIs with 23 home runs. I mean, this guy, Tommy Pham, if I was really going to go and say, could he be a guy that the Mets could go for? No. But me personally, if I was the owner, if I was going to actually think of a good value player, I would probably go with Jock Peterson. Each year, Jock Peterson had high numbers. Now, what do I mean by that? From 22 to 2014, obviously, he played for the Dodgers for many, many years. So from 14 to 2020, his best year was really in 2019 with 36 home runs, had 450 at-bats. He had 74 RBIs, and he averaged at 249. So he had a really good year that year, and even in 22. So if you look at 22, when he played for the Giants, he had 380 at-bats. He had 70 RBIs. He had 23 home runs, and he had a batting average of 274. So, I mean, could he be a guy that the Mets could also look at too? Could be a guy that the Mets also look at too. But now the Mets are also still interested in Rafael Devers, which it was funny because somebody mentioned it to me weeks ago about him. Said, what do you think about Rafael Devers? Now, we do know that he does. We do know that he actually plays for the Boston Red Sox. I think that would he be a little bit realistically playing for the Mets? I mean, as of really what I see here in regards to his stats, I mean, he has pretty decent numbers. He's got 27 home runs in 22. He had 88 RBI. Batting average was 295. So I mean, that's really good. He's still young. He's 26 years old, but he's a third baseman. So I mean, could he be a guy you want to put off the bench? I mean, he could also be a guy that you could put there. Or you could maybe platoon him there at first base. I mean, the Mets need to go out and actually get a backup first baseman. Don't get me wrong, I love Pete Alonso, but the Mets do need a backup first. I mean, you got to give days off to Pete Alonso. So if Pete Alonso could get actual days off, then I think the Mets would be in really good shape if they were going to do something like that. even though I think Rafael Devers would make a really good addition. But it was just happened to be so funny that somebody mentioned it to me. Why don't you talk a little bit of him? He seems to be a pretty decent player. Could the Mets really consider maybe bringing him in? I think that would be a really cool idea. But again, we got to weigh our options. It's kind of how I look at it. And then we could talk about Xavier Bogaerts. Now, Xavier Bogaerts, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he re-signed with the Boston Red Sox. But I was really this was a guy I was really interested in looking. I kind of wanted to put this in on the broadcast today. I was looking at his numbers from 2013 to 2022. His best year was in 2019, which he had 117 RBIs. He had 614 at-bats. He is an outfielder. I think he would make a really good addition. If the Mets wanted to do a trade move, which, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he's locked in and signed with the Red Sox. But if the Mets were smart, and if they wanted to try to do something like that, I think the Mets could more than likely try to make a trade for Xavier Bogaerts. I like him. I think he was really good. So that's my analysis of the players I feel that would make it, a good spot. So what else we have? Okay, so I'm gonna throw a poll out there. See if I could just put it into our fan group. If you guys want to go to our community on our fan page on Facebook, I'm gonna have a poll on there, and I want to know what you guys think. And you guys put in your suggestions too, because I think that would be really cool, and so that way we could talk about it on the show. And the question is, what would make a really good Mets edition outfielder for the Mets? I think if the Mets really wanted to go and make a trade, say for argument's sake the Mets want to do a trade. Say for argument's sake the Mets wanted to sign. It's like what players are really out there that the Mets could actually sign as an extra outfielder? That's number one. Number two, what type of a trade can the Mets? So can that be a move that the Mets could do? Is it something that could they, feather up a guy? I know we're talking with the organization that they are heavy on Tommy Pham and they are heavy on the other guy, but could the Mets either get Jock Peterson? Could they go out for Denver's? There was another guy that I thought would be also a player that I like would be Christian Arrero. I think Christian Arrero would make a really good addition. I don't know about Brandon Drury. It could be a good player. I was looking at his stats. He doesn't impress me. People were talking about him. They're like, "Oh, why not Brandon Drury?" Doesn't impress me. I don't feel, in my honest opinion, that the Mets would make a move like that. But it's you got to see what's actually going to make sense for the organization. If a Met, say for argument's sake, the Mets really wanted to go out and get Christian Arrero, I think Christian Arrero will make a good addition. It just, we could go out here and say that, does this guy have potential? He hasn't really had a good season in quite a long time, but I think that if the Mets really want to resurface a guy and really, bring a guy in, I think he would be really. So that's what I would do in regards to trade or signs that could make. Also, just to let you guys know that who was it today? It was Thomas Ford, which was a Mets guy. He was down in single A ball. The Mets did promote him up to triple A. They're saying this guy's supposed to be really good. I'm interested in seeing Tommy Ford. I know I spoke with him. I think it was a couple weeks ago. I was doing an event, and I just happened to see him in passing, and we were talking. And I said to him, I said, "Hey Tommy," I said, "Question for you." He goes, "Yeah, what's up?" I said, "So are you planning on coming up anytime soon?" And he's like, "What you mean?" I said, "I heard that you're in single A ball. Super nice guy. I mean, his stats really do prove a lot. I mean, in his third year, I think it was in his third year in single A ball, he hits for power. He's got he's good defensively. I mean, watching watching tape on this guy, nobody really talks about the guys that are really good. Like they do talk about Ronnie Mauricio. I think Ronnie Mauricio needs to be a guy that the Mets need to put up in the outfield too. The Mets got a lot of weapons. They're starting to really, they are really. I think they really are starting to develop players. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened. Uh, but going back into the broadcast, I think we are having some technical difficulties on here on the broadcast today. My producer telling me that you're having some issues with the broadcast. So again, I could fix this. Oh, she's talking about live. But I like what the Mets are doing. I'm honestly that we will definitely be having really good additions forward to 20. So this is all for today, but we want to like to end this on a really sad note for Met fans. If you guys follow the Mets and always know Mets history, today we are sad to learn that Frank Thomas, original New York Met, passed away today at the age of 93. He was, again, 93 years old. He played with the Mets from 1951 to 1966. He's a three-time All-Star from the Pirates also as well. And he was a designated hitter who played for 16 seasons with the Mets between 1961 through 6. A Pittsburgh native, Thomas signed with his hometown in 1947. He spent 3+ seasons in the minors before a tail end of the 1951 campaign. Thomas saw really great years in his 1991 season. He was listed at 6'3" and 200 pounds. The right-hander hitting himself as an excellent power hitter. He connected on a 255. So his seasons were at 200 point 255. For his first full season, he earned the results that remained a stable on MVP ballots throughout, secured at least some support in 5 of the 6 seasons. He notched in 54, 55, and 58 at 4 in the voting behind Ernie Banks, Willie Mays, and Hank Aaron. Thomas topped 20 long balls every year from 1953 to 1958. He first ranked 10th in the majors with 7 Hall of Fames. And over the 1958 season to 1959 season, Pittsburgh traded Thomas, player deal that landed catcher Smokey Burgess and Steel City. He played 1 year in Cincinnati but struggled for a 3-player package headlined to reliever B. Thomas. The next season, the Braves traded Thomas to the Mets for their inaugural campaign in 1962 and connected on season. Thomas Wood spent around 2.5 seasons with the Phillies, firmly settled into journeyman playing with Philadelphia and played with Houston. And also Thomas appeared in parts of 16 big leagues, came across 1,700. Thomas connected on 286 home runs, all-time leaders. He doubled 262 times, drove in 9 of his most productive seasons, came with his hometown multiple seasons for 5 different clubs. He is honored with us here on MetsXMFanZone Live podcast. And again, we are deeply sad to learn that Frank Thomas, original Met, has passed away. 5-time All-Star, MVP, and we are sad to hear of this development. Our condolences go to the Thomas family. And again, we are saddened to learn that Frank Thomas, original Met of the 1960 season, has passed away at the age of 90. We want to thank you guys for watching here on our show today. If you guys love our shows, please always tweet, like, subscribe. Please share our content out there so that way we can give you guys all of your New York Mets live here on our. We want to thank you guys for watching. Also, if you guys miss our shows, you guys can check it out by going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. You could also listen to here as well on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in